Why, hello there, and welcome to Vicky's Neighborhood. I'm Stephanie, and today I'll be reading you Johnny and the Beanstalk. In this story, Johnny McKenzie tells his teacher and classmates his own version of Jack and the Beanstalk. So, are you ready? Good. Then let's begin now. It was story time again at school on the day after Columbus Day, and Johnny had his own version of Jack and the Beanstalk to tell, and it went something like this. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there lived a king and a queen who had a beautiful daughter named Princess Vicki, who sang every sunrise and sunset. As Princess Vicki sang, the bluebirds sang along, the sun shone bright that day, the farm animals from the village began to dance joyfully. People from the village loved hearing the princess sing her heart out, and it made them very, very happy. Yes, the beautiful golden voice of the beautiful princess cast a magical spell of joy and happiness throughout the kingdom. But it was too good to last. One night a mysterious figure came into the kingdom, and then something terrible happened. When morning came, Princess Vicki was gone. The king and queen immediately rounded up a search party for their missing daughter, while the whole kingdom fell into despair. The fields of beautiful colored flowers shriveled up and died. The stream no longer sparkled. All the people and animals grew very, very sad. Not far from Princess Vicky's castle, there in a cottage lived 3 boys named Johnny, Wendell, and Perry, who had nothing left to eat but baby carrots and the last bit of bread. "We don't have enough food left in the house," Wendell cried. "What can we do?" asked Perry. Johnny had an idea. "I know, we can sell our cow to get money for food," he suggested. "That's not a bad idea," his friends agreed. So Johnny trotted off to the village to sell the cow, who hadn't given a drop of milk since Princess Vicki disappeared. Just as Johnny reached the village, he stumbled upon a man and his wife. They were his Uncle Zed and Aunt Yvonne. "Good morning, Johnny," they said brightly. "Good morning to you too, Uncle Zed and Aunt Yvonne," Johnny replied, trying to smile even one bit. "Is something wrong, lad?" asked Uncle Zed. "My friends and I haven't been eating very much lately. Not since the princess vanished," Johnny replied sadly. "Oh, what a pity," Aunt Yvonne said, feeling sorry for her favorite nephew. "Ain't it, Aunt Yvonne? We even decided to sell our cow to get money for food," Johnny added. "Well, looky here," said Uncle Zed, as eagerness grew in his voice. "A partially white cow, perfect for our farm." Johnny began to smile a wee bit more. "What are you saying?" asked Johnny. "I'll tell you what. If your aunt and I take the cow in as our own, we'll help you buy some food from the market and take them back to you and your friends." Uncle Zed smiled. That made Johnny happy. Later that evening, after Johnny helped his Uncle Zed and Aunt Yvonne take their cow Pearl to their own farm, and Uncle Zed and Aunt Yvonne helped Johnny take some bought food from what was left from the market back to his friends, they both had a surprise for them. Aunt Yvonne reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a small box containing 3 magic beans. Johnny and his friends were amazed as they saw the beans sparkling. Wow, what kind of beans are they? Asked Perry. Yeah, agreed Wendell. Why are they sparkling? I'm glad you asked. These aren't ordinary beans. They're magic beans, Aunt Yvonne replied. If you plant these beans tonight before the full moon comes up, something incredible will happen. What sort of something incredible will happen? Johnny asked. You'll find out when you and your friends wake up in the morning, Uncle Zed replied. The boys smiled and decided to plant the magic beans right away. And after having dinner with their nephew and his friends, Uncle Zed and Aunt Yvonne left for home. Later that night, the full moon rose up so high in the sky, as far as the eye can see. A beam of light shined down on the spot where Johnny, Wendell, and Perry had planted the beans. Slowly up from the ground, a beanstalk started to grow, and it grew and grew and grew until it reached the sky itself. When morning came, Johnny, Wendell, and Perry woke up and went outside to see a giant beanstalk. Uncle Zed and Aunt Yvonne were right. The beans were magical after all. So the three boys started to climb the beanstalk and find out what was up there. Johnny and his friends started climbing the beanstalk, and they climbed and climbed higher and higher until they finally reached the top of the beanstalk. Ahead of them, they saw a magnificent castle. They wondered who lived there. Maybe a giant king and queen. There was only one way to find out. Johnny and his friends decided to go there and see whoever lived there might have plenty of food and money to spare. Soon they reached a moat surrounding the castle, but they weren't going to let that stop them. Johnny came across a giant turtle, and he kindly asked him to help him and his friends get straight across the water. The turtle agreed, and the boys climbed up on top of its back, and away they went. When the turtle dropped off the boys on the other side of the moat, Johnny and his brothers paid the turtle 3 of their remaining carrots and gave it a pat on the head. "Thanks, old pal," Johnny said politely. Johnny and his friends continued their journey by climbing the giant stairs up towards the castle door. Finally, after a long climb, Johnny walked up to the door and knocked, but when no one answered, Johnny came up with another plan. He, Wendell, and Perry carefully crawled under the gap at the very bottom of the door. The huge hallway in the castle was dark and quiet. "It's quiet," Johnny whispered to his friends. "Too quiet." His friends nodded agreeingly. Once inside, Johnny and his friends found themselves a fabled dining room, and on the table there were plates filled with delicious food. Why, it looked like a feast! "Food!" Wendell yelled in excitement, and the 3 hungry friends enjoyed the very best meal they ever had. A few moments later, Johnny heard a voice from somewhere across the table. "Hello? Who's there?" Johnny turned his head to the right and saw a familiar face. "It's Princess Vicki!" he cried. "The princess?" gasped Wendell. Echoed Perry on a mouthful. The 3 friends stopped eating and rushed across the table to see the princess, who was locked inside a box. "How did you get here, Princess?" Johnny questioned. "I was stolen by a wicked giant. He brought me here to sing only for him." "A giant?" Johnny gasped. "A giant?" Wendell and Perry repeated. Suddenly, there came thundering footsteps from somewhere in the castle hallway. Johnny, Wendell, and Perry knew a giant was coming. "Fee, fi, fo, fum," the giant sang. So they scattered about to find places to hide on the table as the giant entered the dining room for dinner. As he hid behind the salt and pepper shaker and thought for a moment he was safe, the scent from the black pepper made Johnny sneeze. Joe! The giant bolted up from his chair and spotted Johnny scurrying across the table, trying to make his great escape. "I got you now," the giant proclaimed. "You can't get away from Jiggy." Johnny thought of asking Jiggy the giant a question, and he thought it up quick. "Are you a magical giant? Can you change yourself into anything?" Johnny said. "Of course I can change myself into anything. Want to see me turn into a white bunny?" replied Jiggy. Johnny nodded politely and called for his friends to watch this magnificent scene. With a sparkling whirl and a magical flash, Jiggy began his transformation and reappeared as a rabbit. "Ta-da!" Jiggy proclaimed proudly. Johnny, Wendell, and Perry applauded and were very impressed with how the way Jiggy changed himself into an adorable and cuddly animal that no one can resist. But when the giant saw that Johnny didn't come alone and had brought his friends with him, he was very angry, and he captured them all at once and took Princess Vicki out of the box before placing them in. Only Johnny managed to slip away. Princess Vicki was devastated to see the giant locking the box and putting the key in his vest pocket. She knew precisely what to do. She began to sing a sweet lullaby to him. Slowly but surely, the silly giant became very sleepy that he fell fast asleep. Johnny came out of hiding and knew he needed to free his friends from the locked box. Princess Vicki was relieved that Johnny made his great escape, gestured him to come to her. Knowing it was safe, Johnny quietly made his way across the dining room table and met up with her, and she whispered instructions in his ear. Very quietly and carefully, Johnny walked up to the sleeping giant and pulled the key out of his pocket. As Princess Vicki kept watch and sang the last verse, Johnny hurried to go free his friends from the locked box. To his relief, the giant didn't wake up, and he continued to snore. Happy to be free from the locked box thanks to Johnny, Wendell and Perry started to escort Princess Vicki out of the giant's castle, crossing the moat on the backs of turtles, and then started climbing down the beanstalk. Johnny, Wendell, and Perry knew the king and queen would be very proud of them, and the search for the missing princess would be over. Suddenly, the castle door burst open, and there was the giant, who had awakened from his sleep and stormed out to follow the three boys and the little princess. Johnny and his friends hurried down the beanstalk with Princess Vicki as fast as they could and made it safely back down to earth. Then the three each took an axe, and together they worked furiously to chop down the beanstalk just as the giant started climbing down.
"Bring me back the princess," the giant roared from up above, "or I'll grind your bones to make my bread."
Just then the beanstalk gave way, and Jiggy began to fall down, 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 until he landed on the soft ground. Princess Vicki began to sing her heart out once again, with her beautiful golden voice. The fields of beautiful colored flowers began to grow again. The sapphire blue streams sparkled once more. And Princess Vicki's parents were thrilled to see that their daughter was safely returned, thanks to Johnny and his friends. The king and queen were so grateful for them for bringing Princess Vicki home that they invited them to live in the castle, and Princess Vicki used her magic to shrink the giant down to size. Then Princess Vicki remembered hearing the giant singing to himself when he returned home to his castle in the sky for dinner, and bouncing his favorite ball, and had an idea. She decided to give him a job as her royal entertainer. "Jiggy," Princess Vicki began as Jiggy was now recovering from his fall, "my mother and father will allow you in our castle if you promise never to kidnap me or the rest of the other beautiful princesses ever again."
"Well, all right," said Jiggy. "I promise that I'll be good. I won't kidnap beautiful princesses or kill brave young lads ever again for as long as I live."
That made everyone happy. Sometime later, Johnny and Princess Vicki were married in a beautiful golden wedding ceremony. And of course, they lived happily ever after. The end. When Johnny finished his own version of Jack and the Beanstalk, his teacher and classmates applauded, even Vicki, who was a wee bit pink in the face. "Thank you, Johnny," Mrs. Chan said. "That was also very imaginative, as much as Vicky's version of the Three Little Pigs." "I'll say," agreed Vicki. "But Mrs. Chan, will I ever get married someday?" Her classmates sighed lovingly. "Of course you will, Vicki," Mrs. Chan replied. "But when you're older, and some young man asks for your hand in marriage, right, Dean?" "Right, Susan," replied Principal Chan, as he came into the classroom to check upon his wife and her classmates. "Oh, Principal Chan," Vicki said brightly, "I will gladly invite you and Mrs. Chan to my wedding in the future." Principal Chan grinned. "See to it that you do," he smiled. "I loved going to weddings ever since I was in diapers." "Same here, hon," Mrs. Chan said. And that is the end of Johnny and the Beanstalk. Thank you very much for joining me today, everybody. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll be reading you Melanie and Vicki in The Princess and the Pauper. Until then, catch you later and have a lovely day.